when someone asks 3 times and
Yeah.
that person refuses to forgive, and assuming everything is done, so what happens then? Everything is done correctly, the restitution, it was made about the other person, the amends, the living amends, whatever, or whatever. What was the word the Rambam used? L'irtzaisei?
Yeah, to appease him, to make him feel better, to comfort him. Yeah, to make him, it's from the word ratzain, to make him feel good about the relationship again. Maybe he's not going to want to be your buddy again, but at least there's no emotional debt.
So when now this person doesn't forgive, the person who is wronged after all that doesn't forgive the other person, that's considered wrong?
Yeah.
That's a sin?
He actually says, that it flips. It's Uno reverse card. Yeah.
And is that a sin between man and man, or a sin between man and God?
It's a very interesting question, whether you pick up the man and man sin that the other guy now dumped on you, or if it's a new sin. I don't know, but he says, he basically says that if the other guy doesn't want to forgive him, then the one who doesn't forgive, who hachaite. Now he's the sinner. Does it mean
what does it mean?
Sin? I don't know if the same sin then gets transferred over. I'm signing it over to you. Now it's your sin.
I guess theoretically speaking, it's a sin between man and God, because if this went over to the other person and the first guy doesn't have anything anymore, so he didn't do anything wrong because he has nothing left on him. Right after doing this 3 times, it's done.
Yeah. Although, should I add one more thing just for the sake of fun?
Go ahead.
Since we're learning a lot of Rambam here. He says there's an exception to that. He says, V'im hoya Rabbi, if it was his teacher. And he says, Afilo elef pa'amim. You're supposed to go to him even 1,000 times. And I don't think he literally means limit it to 1,000 times. He means you just keep going until he forgives you.
If someone did something wrong to their teacher, then keep going. Maybe the teacher is trying to teach them a lesson.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
Okay, so now in terms of, I want to talk about the types of sins that could be forgiven as well from the vantage point of the offender. And I'm not talking about between man and man, because I think we've addressed that. Let's say between man and God. I've heard this concept, I don't know where it's said, is that someone who is meiser on someone else, someone who rats tattletales on someone else, or someone who charges interest, ribis, to someone else. Those 2 categories of people are not returned by Tchias HaMesim, right? When Mashiach comes and Messiah comes, all lives are said to be reinstored. Those categories of people are not. Have you heard that? And I'm not looking to talk about as much about those sins as I am to talk about the concept. Are there certain wrongs that just are unforgivable? Those type of mistakes.
There is a lot of things. It says that someone who embarrasses somebody publicly has no portion in the world to come.
Presumably that can be forgiven, right? Between man and man. We've all embarrassed someone, I think.
Well, the examples you were giving also are interpersonal relationships.
Right. And within interpersonal relationships, I think we've addressed that someone can get forgiveness from the other person.
By the way, when you talk about interest, maybe the guy who paid the interest was happy to do so. Maybe he doesn't consider himself a victim.
Maybe he doesn't, but it's still a sin to pay or collect interest.
Yeah.
Person who bought the opioids doesn't consider himself a victim either. But
that's right.
1 in 100 are dying. So, no, I don't know if those are the numbers, but.
So what are you driving at here? What's
I want to know conceptually if there are sins that are unforgivable. Meaning, between man and man, I think we've addressed those. Someone does something wrong, you have to go through this process of retribution and restitution and all of those things. And assuming he made it right and the other person was okay with it, even if he shamed him in public, that could be forgiven. But then there are some sins that are, actually what you said about interest is perfect. If party A pays party B interest, and both are perfectly happy with that transaction, and assuming no heter iska, no business allowance or anything else, just interest.
Again, stating the obvious. Yes.
Yes, it's a sin. If someone, let's stay with the interests example because it's simpler and more obvious.
Okay.
What I've heard about this is that person cannot, like by Tchias HaMesim, they don't come back, which would be the same thing as they have no stake in Elam Haba, the future worlds. So that communicates the concept that there are certain sins, as far as God is concerned, that are unforgivable. And that's what I want to understand. Is that in fact the case? Are there certain sins that are unforgivable?
Well, let me ask you a question. What does unforgivable mean? Because
the slate can never be wiped completely clean.
Does it mean that if somebody dies without having done teshuvah?
That we understand anyway. That
you're saying even the person did teshuvah and he earnestly did everything he can to make good on it. So you're saying that nothing.
That's what I'm asking. Does that concept exist, or do we know with certainty that assuming someone goes through the right steps, whatever they are for each individual wrong, whether it's between man and person or man and God, that one can be completely forgiven in any and all cases? That's my question. Let's maybe use the word redemption.
So here's the deal.
And we'll end on this.
Nothing stands in the way of teshuvah. Question is, how much teshuvah is it going to require? But just like we're talking about coming to a person and not just saying in a perfunctory way that I'm sorry, but actually thinking about their feelings and trying to make them feel better. So too, so to speak, you have to always say when you're talking about Hashem, so to speak, kaviyachol, right? Because we don't want to humanize God. Although, let me just pause for 1 second and say something funny. I was speaking recently to a group of young people. It was in Manhattan, and I spoke about, it was right before Rosh Hashanah. I was speaking about going into Rosh Hashanah and telling Hashem that you want to be in a relationship with him. So this young woman comes over to me after the talk, and she's like, Hashem wants to be in a relationship with you? Come on, that's what Rosh Hashanah is? It sounds so human. So I'm like, okay, well, how do you think Rosh Hashanah is? She's like, well, like he's judging you, and if you wronged him, he's going to punish you for it, and he's not going to let you off the hook. I said, that also sounds human.
Even more human.
So in being this petty, vindictive God, that's not too human. That's godly, right? But being interested in a relationship with you and trying to do anything that it takes to save the relationship, no, that's too human. Okay.
She summed up what a lot of people were thinking. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So I wish she had said it in front of everybody.
Right.
But okay, at any rate. So just like when we go to a person, it's not just about, okay, how much did I steal from you? $100? Okay, write me a receipt. I gave you back $100. It's about the emotional aspect of it. So to teshuvah, when you return to Hashem, it's about the emotional aspect. It's not just, okay, I sinned and I don't do that anymore. It's about how strongly I feel the need to restore the relationship. And in that, there are infinite levels because it's not quantifiable. When if you stole $100, it's very binary. Did you pay it back or didn't you? When it comes to the emotional component, it's endless, which is why teshuvah is endless. So we know that when somebody does teshuvah with all of their heart, not only it wipes the slate clean, but I'm sure you're familiar with the concept.
Like you said earlier, it's an even stronger relationship.
It's an even stronger relationship, right? That's right. That's right. Okay. So we can come back from anything.